In episode 21, we have the conclusion of making Hillbilly maple syrup.
Hey, is Dave there?
After working all day to get 250 liters of sap down to something like about 10 liters, the next step, the next morning, you have to do the finish boil. And we do that outside, because otherwise you'd have a sticky mess inside your cabin. So what we have here is the finish. And the finish is, we take that 250 liters of sap that was reduced to about 10 liters of sap, and then we finish to the final 213.5 degrees in this pot. And you'll see down here, we're using propane to do it. I've got all these wind blocks up. All these wind blocks up because it's a windy day. Even though it's sunny out, it's hard to keep the heat on this. And you want to keep a nice rolling boil. Oop, I think I just saw a pine needle go through there. But that'll get caught in the filter. Once we get this to the right temperature, we do a final filter. It's a big cloth filter, very tight, and then a lamb or sheepfold kind of felt filter, and we put them into a cream bucket, an old cream bucket, and bottle. So you'll see, first things first, that we've got to reduce this some more. Obviously, get more water. You can just see the wind there. It just took all the heat out of it for a moment. And then once it hits temperature, we turn this off. We go inside. And we put it through the filters, and bottle is the last step. We're getting close. All right, so we're at our last stage, and it's the filtering stage. So we've got an old cream bucket, and then you have two-stage filters. So there's a felt filter and then a really fine filter in the top. And this is the one we change out because we've got a bucket that we boiled down here today. It's the last batch, so I'm curious to see what it's going to produce. But we got to get it into this filter and let it sit. The old cream bucket then has an old spout on it, and we'll bottle right from this. So let's get some in and see how we do. It looks very liquidy because it is very hot. So we've got to be careful with it and get it in. Oh, you can hear it filtering already, which is terrific. And I'll do about half of this batch, and then I'll change the filter because there'll be a bunch of fine stuff and sludge in the filter itself that just will basically plug up the filter. So that feels like about half. So we're going to do that, put it in, and we have to let it sit for a second, and then we can come back at it and do the bottling. So you can see unfortunately our old cream pail, which is probably 100 years old, is getting a bit of a leak on it, but what we're going to do is bottle quickly here. So the key here is not to burn yourself. We get these nice little containers with maple syrup stamps on them from the local hardware store. And the other piece we got to be careful of is this is quite hot. So we're just going to let this go here. It's already come through the filter, and you can see it pour quite well. Apologies, I had the camera set wrong, but I put a couple of pictures of my son bottling in a later boil, and it shows you how the cream pail works. There's a little glass window there that tells you how full it is. For the 250 liters that I boiled on that day, I got about 5 liters of syrup. So it's pretty work intensive for the amount that you get. 50-to-1 sap to syrup is pretty normal for us in the trees, and the better trees farther to south. I think you might get 35 or 30-to-1, but 50-to-1 is pretty normal for us. There you have it. That's how Hillbilly maple syrup is made. I should have taken a shot, I apologize, of the syrup itself. It came out a nice golden and perfectly clear color, just like you would get out of the store. So the result was good. We've tried it out and it's excellent. I'll share with you for the rest of this video some of the clips from the other boils. There's lots of great footage. I couldn't put it all in. And this is me just checking after a storm. There's a few bad storms that came through and really blew things all around. So we had to clean up a few times. But all in all, an incredibly successful trip. All right, so Tina and I collected today, and I was a little worried, I'll be honest with you, that the run was over, but we didn't have anything to fear. We spent probably a couple hours collecting 560 liters of sap. So it's still running, and that's good for when my son Sully comes up. We'll do a boil, and I think we'll do another one in between. So it was a good collection day. I think a personal best for me, so gonna celebrate and stay hydrated and take a breather now that we've got all the sap stored away in buckets, and tomorrow the boil starts. Take the top off after we get it going and get the tent over. The first things first is it takes a couple hours to get the boil going, so you got to start as early as you can. And get a good burn. So we'll see how that goes. Here we go. With that record sap collection, we started early and ran late. You can see that we ran into the dark. There's some beautiful photos by both Morgan and Tina. Okay, we got a boil, and with the foam, a little bit of butter never hurts, just to take the foam away, so we're going to do that. And let's measure the temperature and see where we're starting here. I'm going to turn it back up a little bit. There we go, old school thermometer. Let's see, I think we're about 2.7 to 8, so it's a good start, but we need to get it going. So there's three ways to tell if your syrup is done. One is our temperature, obviously. We've been talking a bit about that. And right now we're getting close to 2012 or 212, 213, which is where we want to be. The other is to hold it up and let it run off the spatula. This is the old school way of doing it. And you can see it start to build up on the bottom, and see how it's stringing there? That's called sheeting, and that means it's very close. When you get to the end, watch the drips, and they'll sheet off, and drip and string. So that means it's close to sap. And then the last way is the technology way, and I'll show you that in a second. But it should show us that we're at about 66% sugar if we're lucky. So I think we're there. I'm just going to try and show you. There you go. So that's 66% sugar when we look through there. So that's just what we want. Sully, do you agree?
Oh,
Sully's going to take a look here. He looks like a French-Canadian explorer, except he's got a refractor in his hand.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah, I think we're there. Yeehaw!
Yeehaw.
Fist bump. Ma. That's some high-quality H2O right there. End of the season, we're stacking the buckets and pulling the pails. I'll do an example of pulling this file here in a second. But yeah, it's also a time of relief. We're going to be done all of the boils here after this one. Well, as they say, all good things must come to an end. But the cottage had one last treat for us. This was the final morning before we departed. And what a morning it was. For all of those who joined us on this fun little adventure, thank you for coming out. It was a pleasure seeing you all. And for those of you that couldn't make it, I hope you join us next time when we make Hillbilly maple syrup. Join me on my next adventure. We'll go to an old coal mining district in Alberta and a unique drive that is called the 11 Bridges of Wayne. Please like and subscribe if you want to keep the adventures rolling.
Dave's not home, man.